really give a shit. You know, he just does his own thing. He doesn't care.
I think his are better.
Yeah, I mean, I say he's like CinemaSins, except he's not an asshole, and he doesn't make up shit.
Oh,
Ouch.
You know.
All right. Well, we're live, so good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Smudcast number 42. We're talking about Resident Evil. We've got some Resident Evil geeks here, and I think in our heart of hearts, we all sort of, if we love the PlayStation or we grew up on the PlayStation, if you know any of these survival horror style games, Res Evil was the first to come out with this format, and it's been changed over the decades as the series got popular, went through some iterations. It almost died once, and then it came back. So
one could argue, yes.
Yeah. So it's the originator of the survival horror genre, and it is as popular as ever these days. I don't know if that's a truth with the amount of money it comes with making sales, but the iterations of media, whether it's video games, on the TV, on the movie screen, it is everywhere. So it's not just a little engine that could with Capcom. It has become its own thing. So bravo to anyone who likes survival horror, and I'm glad Resident Evil is still around. The question is, should it be? That's going to be a lot of things popping up. I'm going to have about 10 questions for you guys, and you guys will tell me what you want to answer. I'll just randomly choose you. But if you think you have a good opinion and you can override everything else that I've said or someone else says, just jump in. I don't mind. That's totally cool. So we have Bad Boy Beta. I think he was going to bring another friend on, but this is more than enough, I think, with the amount of content of media in Resident Evil you guys have consumed. You probably could write a few books on the topic, and that's always nice to share in real time. So Bad Boy Beta, we have Gigaman on the stream. He's playing, what are we playing right now, actually?
Playing the Wii version of Resident Evil 4, the original version.
Best version.
The
best version of the original Resident Evil 4. Because right now, otherwise we have the remake now, finally.
Well, there's nothing wrong with the remake.
There's like 20 versions of the original 4.
Okay, all right. We have God02. Thank you, sir, for popping in and sharing your experience. And we have Under the Mayo, who I believe it's one of your passions to talk about the Res Evil series and all of its permutations. So thank you for popping in.
Survival horror in general, man. I love it. So thanks for having me here.
Good stuff.
Definitely has its audience, yeah.
Okay, so there's about 10 questions I have ready. You guys can always tell me to shut up or keep going, or let me talk about that question one another hour. Okay, here we go. What makes a Resident Evil video game work? Or basically, what is the formula for Resident Evil? Anyone can answer that question.
The formula, what makes it work for?
Like, you know how Star Wars has lightsabers and force powers and the starship battles? That's the formula for Star Wars. Maybe it's a bit different with the shows these days, but
I would love to take this one.
Okay,
if you guys wouldn't mind.
Go for
it. Of course, not every single game is the same. There's, in every genre, there's room for the flexibility, for everyone to kind of do things their own way. But if you're thinking of like a classic Resident Evil survival horror game, what are you looking for? You're looking for limited inventory space. You're looking for limited resources like healing and ammo, to the point to where you don't want to kill everything you find. It's the decision-making process of, am I going to use my ammo to kill this enemy? Or am I going to try to save this ammo and risk trying to get around him, possibly having to deal with him multiple times as I backtrack through the map and possibly getting hurt in the process? It's the puzzle solving. There's multiple puzzles that you have to figure out: logic puzzles, item-based puzzles, puzzle-based map design, where the individual maps you go to are puzzles in themselves that have to be figured out before you can escape.
The exploration, yeah.
Yeah, those are the large elements of survival horror, I would say, and that you're not just incentivized to explore, you have to explore. If you don't, then you won't find what you need. You won't find the puzzle solutions. Those are the main things that would make a Resident Evil game to me off the top of my head.
Okay, so stuff like the fighting mechanics, the shooting, is that just secondary, or is that?
No, of course that's there. That's there, but like that's stuff that you would find in an action game as well, right? Of course we need those things. Like a Resident Evil without a shotgun blast to the head isn't Resident Evil, right?
Oh,
But
Got a rocket launcher at the
right. Like there's other staples of the genre, of course, right? But speaking about like what the genre is, what is a survival horror Resident Evil game? Like if you have the shotguns and stuff like that, then but you don't have all those other elements, you could still have a Resident Evil game, but a very different kind of Resident Evil game, but it wouldn't be survival horror, which is what we've seen. We've seen Resident Evil be very flexible in its own sort of franchise to be different kinds of games. It's not always survival horror, which is what has made Resident Evil so interesting over the years, is that it's been so many things. So, yeah, I mean, what Resident Evil game has to have, you know, the monsters and the guns and all that kind of stuff, spooky atmosphere, sure. But if we're talking about a survival horror Resident Evil game, then there are many things in the genre that it needs to contain, which it may not have originated, but it definitely solidified under the title of survival horror when it came out.
okay. So
It definitely helped pioneer the genre the way we know it now.
Yeah, and it gave it its name. It literally gave it its name in the loading screen.
Yeah, that's something
Yeah,
that's definitely
loading
fair to say, that Resident Evil, like, at least the way we know the genre now, was the first of its kind to fully establish how we know the genre.
Right. I mean, it comes
Right.
from a lot of things. I mean, you can look back to Sweet Home before that, and other games that have had horror and survival mechanics and whatnot. But like Resident Evil put it all together under a nice package and sold it to the public.
Which makes perfect sense. Which makes perfect sense, considering that the original Resident Evil was a direct spiritual successor to Sweet Home because of Shinji Mikami.
oh wow, that is. I don't know if you guys. Well, I don't know if the audience remembers Sweet Home. I'm old enough to remember that because it was so old.
you had-
Did anyone?
What was it on?
Well, that was back in the. Was it 90s? No, it must have been earlier than that. I'm trying to remember when I played
I
that.
think it was late 80s.
Was it SNES or?
No. This was.
It was it was NES.
Yeah, the original. So yeah, no, it was supposed to be a remake, I thought, of Sweet Home.
Yeah.
was.
That's the funny thing is that the first Resident Evil Mikami wanted to make. Well, I think he was.
Give me a moment, gents. I apologize.
It
Okay.
was the publishers that said, "Hey, Mikami, can you make a remake of Sweet Home on this newer hardware so more people can see this style of game that people?" And then like one thing led to another, and then he got his own ideas. And it was called, I guess, because it's called Biohazard in Japan, and it's been called that forever, which is funny. Like, but like it's Resident Evil is just a shout out to what it was originally supposed to be, which is a remake.
Well, we did have Resident Evil 7 Biohazard in the West, I believe. And
That's when that was cool that they combined the titles together.
Yeah.
But yeah, the original the vision of Sweet Home, Resident Evil, of what eventually became Resident Evil, it was originally supposed to be first person as well,
Right.
as far as I know. But you know, the first person on the PlayStation 1, they just couldn't get the convincing environments for the horror, so they went with the painted backgrounds to give it that movie look, and which became so iconic and is so important to the genre now that we have, you know, modern indie games coming out that are still using that aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I just want to say to go off of like what Mayo was saying earlier about like listing all the different things that what makes Resident Evil unique. Another thing that makes it unique as well, at least until like I think 8 anyway, Resident Evil 8 is it's a very kind of grounded series. Like they actually incorporate science into the story. Like we're going to explain to you how these zombies exist.
Yeah,
You know, like
they
how
stretch it.
these things are built. I mean,
They
yes.
stretch it for sure,
In
but-
later games, yes, it does stretch, especially with 8. 8 is the worst.
You know,
it's like-
8 literally has flying possessed puppets. So
Yeah,
yes.
and vampires and werewolves.
Vampires.
Yeah. But like the original series, they actually explain to you. It's like, okay, here's how zombies work. Here's how these things exist. It's very grounded. It's not supernatural. It's not paranormal. it's very grounded, at least in the early series.
I think that was also part of the time. Like it was like the science at the time was like fiction was talking a lot about genetics and viruses anyway.
I believe so.
And because that's a big, I think, distinguishing aspect of the first game is like not many had a lot of infected animals as enemies, and they don't really do that after the first game. Like infected snakes and.
Well, I think a lot of like the boss enemies in Resident Evil 0 were pretty much just all animals, like test animals, like
yeah.
Bats and centipedes and monkeys, things like that.
Well, like the first one, you had the giant spider, the giant snake, the giant shark. It goes along with what was happening in that laboratory. But yeah, the whole original trilogy, like I get pushback sometimes when I say that the original trilogy was a lot more grounded than what came after, and people say Resident Evil was never grounded. It's like, well, what I mean is that it was a simple story of a company doing experiments with their viruses and mutants. Like it was easily explained. And once you go beyond that original trilogy and you get into Resident Evil 0, where you have like anime villains singing opera to psychically control leeches that collect together and create clones of humans, and then RE4. I mean, I know that I know
drop the company. They get rid of the company and they go crazy.
Everything beyond that just gets a little crazier. And then by the time you get to RE8, you have psychic puppets flying around and vampires, and it's like I do miss the days where it was just like these are the zombies and here's the monsters that were engineered, and that's it. I do miss that.
7 kind of tried to bring that all back to.
Yeah, but again, it becomes like you've got a girl that doesn't age, and then she's like psychically connected to the goo, and like. I get that they explain it through the lore.
Zombie mold.
There's always an explanation.
7.
There's always an explanation, sure, but I do miss the very simple days of like we just have a virus and oops, here's the zombies.
Monsters got out, run away.
So that sort of brings,
pharmaceutical company that doesn't have OSHA rules.
That sort of brings me into my next question: is that should the series return to its traditional survival horror roots, or keep going with this over-the-top action gameplay?
Well, they already. I'm sorry to cut you off, Smud. They already had that happen with 5 and 6. Like 5 and 6 tended, started to gravitate towards more action-oriented. Like I always make the joke that Resident Evil 6 was essentially a Michael Bay movie, essentially.
I think Capcom was.
I mean, when you play as Leon Kennedy running away from a massive explosion, and he still somehow manages to outrun it, it's like, okay,
yeah, no,
yeah, but yeah, they realized like, yeah, we can't keep going like this. It's getting too far, out there. So it's like, yeah, they brought it back with Resident Evil 7.
I think it's a good way for them to go, because I think I'm pretty certain now they're just going to remake everything, right? Because I don't know how they're not going to remake 5. But
yeah, that's going to be interesting to see how they do that.
If they really keep that going of having 2 different lines of 9 tries to be more different, and then the remake of 5 tries to shift things back to classic gameplay, I'd be down.
Oh, if they remake 5, it's going to be really interesting, because at this point, there's a homogenization happening with the remakes, because they're all done in the same engine. They're all done with the same camera perspective. They're all done with the same controls. RE2 remake plays like RE4 remake. Like Leon basically controls the same. And
there's not much difference now.
I don't think that you can do that in an RE5 remake.
Yeah, because
RE5 is
that's
so
when
fast.
Yeah, because that's when the action bent of the series fully kicked in at that point.
And so if
not
they
only
do that,
Well, not only that. Sorry to cut you off, Mayo. Not only that, but Resident Evil 5 was the first one to. Actually, I don't know about. Did they have co-op in Revelations? Was that AI?
I forget.
Revelations, I think, was after 5, right?
Oh, was it?
No, but no, it didn't. No, it didn't, because it was originally on the 3DS.
Okay. But yeah, okay, so then Resident Evil 5 would be the first Resident Evil game to introduce co-op.
Mm-hmm.
So that'll be interesting if they do remake 5 to explain, okay, how are they going to incorporate co-op, if they're going to at all, if they remake 5.
Okay, so do you guys think they should bring co-op back?
I mean,
I think they have to. It's fundamental to the structure.
If you ask me,
the experience of the original game.
If you ask me, yeah.
Well, I'm just curious why that is. Yeah.
Well, because the entire time Shiva is with you, and if you just have her there the entire time without the co-op option, when so many people, so many fans, millions and millions of fans. I mean, how many copies does that game sell? Like over 12 million?
Actually, is it still the best-selling one?
16, yeah, it is. Like 16 million copies or something like that. And like you have an entire fan base of people who experience that game co-op. I just don't think it's the right move to release that as a single-player only game. I just don't think that'll go over well. It'll sell fine, but I don't think that's the right move.
Actually, I think there's a way. I think there's a way they could do something like that. And this is kind of a poor example, but this is just off the top of my head. Maybe they could do it like the way they did with Dead Space 3.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because
where
that would be harder, but you can have a.
It would be harder, yes.
Damn it!
Having trouble there, Ginga?
Yeah, trying to get the lock.
Oh, but like you said,
and yes, I'm gonna use the cheese method here. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, but the thing is, I just don't. If they had to include co-op, I would do it the way Dead Space 3 did. But I think they could probably be better off if they just said, "Hey, let's have Shiva be, like, bring back the A-B story stuff."
Oh, like play as Chris and then like finish the game and then play as Sheva?
No, but have it just the zapping system, right? Like maybe bring that back and have it be.
From Zero, from Resident Evil 0.
Wasn't the zapping system from 2?
Yeah, the zapping system is 2.
Yeah, I
was.
I
2?
think
okay.
Yeah, I think I'd be more interested.
Oh, we're close.
Let them if they bring it back and just have RE5 remake where you can play the A, B of Shiva or Chris. And
yeah, when you said zapping system, I thought you meant Resident Evil 0 where you could switch on the fly.
Because they've never done that since 2, right? So
yeah.
No, they haven't.
All right. Yeah. Here's my next question, just to keep it going. This should not be any controversy at all. Is Resident Evil 4 overrated, or does it deserve its status as a groundbreaking entry into the franchise, not gaming as a whole, as the franchise?
Can I hot take this?
Hot take? Resident Evil 4? Go for it.
Oh, yeah. Really?
So I mentioned I only really got into the remake. So I only played 4 for the first time last year, the whole way through.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow, this is really good. But it was because it was so hyped up to me all those years before playing it. I had so much experience of stuff like with the RE2 remake, and hell, even Evil Within, like the first 2. That it was I found it a little overrated. By the time I got.
Well, there's two ways to look at it. Like if it's calling it, quote unquote overrated. There's the game itself, and there's the importance of the game. Like it is one of the most influential and important games ever made.
Yeah, easy.
Right, like depending on how much you like it, it's just what it did for not just for the franchise, but like hell, just the camera perspective. Every game looks like RE4 now.
See, that's why I wanted to bring it down to the franchise, because if we talk about gaming, I know the importance of the game as a whole. I think we all knew it.
Yeah.
That's what brought Resident Evil on the map, the same with Final Fantasy VII. But I want to specifically ask, what about that game in the franchise makes it groundbreaking?
What about, I don't know. There's the way that, well, of course, the camera system. The inventory system was unique in the genre for sure. I mean, it basically created the action horror genre, which we don't see a whole lot of entries in, but I mean, it inspired Dead Space, of course.
Mhm.
Dead Space completely changed directions after RE4 came out.
And then it also inspired Alan Wake a little bit.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah.
Yep.
But I think just the yeah.
And
it's split on that.
Like a game, when we talk about how games are important, we don't have to talk about like direct influence, like, you know, what did this game, you know, inspire in other games. Really, when a game like RE4 comes out, what it does is it shows what's possible in video games, the scope of it, you know, the experience, how much it inspires. It doesn't just inspire people to make games that are like RE4 mechanically or in tone. It inspires people to want to get involved in games in general because of how incredible the experience is, and that's why it's so important.
Not to mention the entire history of how Resident Evil 4 itself came into existence, which is spans all the way back since around RE3.
Oh yeah, can't we thank it for Devil May Cry too?
Yes. We've mentioned before plenty of times that Resident Evil 4's hectic development gave birth to Devil May Cry.
So it just changed action games altogether.
It was the game was going too far into action. They decided to reel it back, but what they had originally, they decided to release as a standalone product.
Yeah, the story I always talk about, they cranked up the frame rate accidentally and tried to get through the Resident Evil build, and they went, "Wow, this is kind of fun," and they thought, "Okay, what is it? What makes it fun?" And they started playing around with the ammo and shooting things is fun very quickly in this creepy old mansion, and they just kept running with that idea until they came up with the wonderful character of Dante and all his theatrics. So yeah, that's I mean, that is probably the extreme of action in Capcom land, to transform the classic horror adventure to a action-packed, stylistic, over-the-top story with everything and the fixings. It just, what it's become is so funny, like a Beautiful Joe, but just on crack. It's just its own thing in it now. So yeah, anyway, that was an easy question, I think, talking about Resident Evil 4. I think everyone appreciates that in some way. Anyway, next one. What's the most disappointing installment in the mainline Resident Evil game series? Not the offshoots.
Mainline.
The mainline. Why is it Resident Evil 6? And what? No, I'm kidding. And what could have been done differently to improve it?
It is Resident Evil 6. Though.
Oh, okay, that's your opinion. Sorry.
Oh, wait. What about
mine.
the remakes though? Do they count?
No, well, not mainline. No, not really. No.
No, okay.
Then it has to be 6.
Oh, you're talking about 5.
Then it has to be Village for me.
Really? Why? Why is that?
Really?
Wow.
Why is it Village? At least it feels like 6 knows what it wants to do, even if it's just like Village. It feels like such a lukewarm compromise between different things our Resident Evil can do that it's just such a bleh experience.
It was. I heard it was a lot because I played that first time and I heard, oh, it's RE4 in first person, and that was basically what I got.
It's just, I mean, like it is in superficial ways. I think. Oh, the merchants there. Oh, you can buy things. Oh, the enemies drop coins. Like, oh, it's like RE4. Oh, there's a village there. It's like, but like the smart game design of 4 isn't there. I did a whole video on this, by the way. If anyone wants to check it out, it's called Resident Evil 4 Linearity Done Right. But I think that Village for me was the most disappointing mainline entry, and it's I think if you would say that like Resident Evil 4 had, despite how great it is, it had possibly negative effects on the direction of the series, which some people would say. I think that Resident Evil Village will likely have a negative effect on the direction of Resident Evil 9.
Did you on the site? Did you play the DLC of Village? Because people praised that, I think, a lot more than the main campaign.
I didn't. Village left such a sour taste in my mouth after my 3 playthroughs and doing a video on it that if the DLC is great, then fine, great. I just don't want to. I don't want to go back to it, honestly.
I think one of the problems with Village was they kind of hyped up Lady Dimitrescu a lot.
Yeah,
you know, like that was like the internet was going crazy over her design. You know, and don't get me wrong, she's a beautiful looking character. Yeah, she's a beautiful looking character, but she's gone very early on. You know, she's the first, I guess you could say, boss fight in the game. Essentially, you could call it that. And then after that, you get, the doll lady, Heisenberg, and Fishman.
Yeah.
I still can't get over that Heisenberg somehow knows what happened in 5.
Oh yeah, that was
one
fun.
that's not one that isn't public knowledge.
Well, look,
yeah,
Chris told everybody that story.
No, it is.
It's on his Instagram. Actually.
I mean, remember in 6, he's at that bar. He was telling people that story.
So then I punched a boulder.
Funniest shit I've ever seen.
I mean, if that's the reason, fine. That does still make sense. But
yeah, but yeah, you would. Hey, if you punched a boulder while standing inside of a volcano, you would brag too. But no, they hyped her. They hyped her up so much, and then she's gone so quickly. It's just after that, it's kind of like I want to say a bit of a letdown.
I know. What's the marketing team gonna do?
I know, but like it's like after that you're like, okay, what's next? And then it's like, here's a Fishman.
Yeah,
and he's disgusting. And I'm like,
here's a haunted house where you just run around and pick up dolls.
Yeah.
So
oh no, here we go, lads.
Oh, the boulder.
Oh, right.
So the main problem with 7 was it wasn't focused. It didn't have a real identity. It was sort of just doing random stuff in this gothic world.
That is a lot harder than it looked.
7's the mold monster ones. Oh, is that what yours? I'm sorry, Spud, I wasn't listening. That's yours disappointing one?
No, I'm just saying, is Village, the problem with Village was it didn't have an identity. It didn't focus on one particular element. It was trying to be 4 too much.
I was just about to say it was trying to be 4.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, that's
in
the vibe I got. Yeah, the vibe I got when I played it was just, and that's kind of what I wanted, so I think I enjoyed it.
Well, I like 7 because it was going back to, let's go back to a gothic, intricate world that was contained. So it's a village. It's not just one place. It's a whole series of areas that have their own.
Do you mean 8? Do you mean 8?
Are we talking about Village?
7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We're talking about 8. Yeah, you were saying 7.
8 is Village.
Oh, sorry. I was talking about, I was mentioning Biohazard. I was stuck on that one.
That's all right.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the most recent as far as I remember. Okay.
It's the thing with Village. I mean, not to rehash my whole giant video on it, is that it feels like they were trying to combine 7 and RE4 together, but without really capturing what made either of those games so special. With Village, it was the linearity. It's like RE4 original is a very linear game, but what they put in front of you as you go down that linear path is always changing up. Like, I mean, look at the stream right here. Like, look what's happening right here. This dynamite section. This is a unique encounter. And then what's going to happen after this? The bridge section with this, where you get the sniper rifle. Like, it's always changing up what it's giving you in the linear experience. And Village puts you just down a linear path where it doesn't seem like it's actually giving you many unique experiences along the way. You could just go off and explore a little bit and find some treasure. But on the linear path, they're not giving you the variety that RE4 gave you, which is why I think that despite the superficial similarities, the spirit of RE4 isn't really there.
Yeah. No, not anymore. No, I can agree with that.
And that's what makes me worried for the eventual RE9. I worry that they're going to go down the same path as Village, because Village was so highly praised.
9 is, I think, in an interesting spot because they kind of have a free ticket to do anything because the story is done.
Pretty much any loose threads that have been in the series thus far. A lot of it's already been tied up.
Yeah, because I heard that Resident Evil 9 is supposed to be like the end cap for what is essentially being called the molded trilogy, which is Resident Evil 7, 8, and 9 is going to be obviously the end cap. Yeah, whatever 9's going to be.
Yeah, so it'll be first person again.
Right.
But like, I don't know who just said it, but yeah, they basically can do whatever they want, because not only was Village very successful, but the RE4 remake just came out and it was also very successful. And the RE2 remake was very successful, and so they could change up the gameplay however they want to, and I hope they do.
Yeah,
it would be interesting to see them like switch from like first person to third person, because I think they did that with the DLC for Village, the Shadow of Rose.
They added in. I think they added in a DLC for the main campaign as well. That was just third person mode.
Well, yeah, it was, oh yes, the highly requested third-person mode, that they took an entire year to make.
It's always nice.
I don't know. Me personally, I don't think Village needed a third-person mode. I mean,
is that DLC or did they put that in the? I forget.
I think they put it in like the anniversary edition or whatever it was. I don't know.
That.
But yeah, we don't know anything about what 9's going to be story-wise or gameplay-wise. But all I've heard, like, when Village was coming up, was that 9 was supposed to be like the end cap. It's going to be like the final chapter in that, quote-unquote trilogy, regarding the molded, the enemies of 7 and 8. And
it's all got to tie together somehow. Like when they just put the Umbrella logo.
I don't know what else they can do. That's the thing, though. I don't know what else they can do with 9. Because Village pretty much answers everything. Really, it's like, here, this is the place where the mold came from.
Yeah.
This might be
this note over here reveals how Umbrella got its logo. It's like, okay, it's like, what are you going to do in 9 then?
Here's the graphic designer who made the logo.
Okay. That's like Saw.
The only thing I can guess is that maybe since Dead Island just came out, I think it just came out, didn't it? Maybe they'll also tie back to that.
You're talking about the movie. Oh, you're talking about
the movie, the Resident Evil Dead Island. Yeah,
I was like, the other zombie game. I was like, wait, what?
No. Resident Evil Dead Island, the movie.
Death Island. Yeah, I just watched that today.
Yeah.
Look, they can make up whatever justification they need. Someone got out of the country with a vial of the goo, and oh no, like you can do whatever. But hear me out. Time travel.
Yeah.
Oh no!
No! Get the no!
Multiverse. Can we go multiverse? And can we get like Chris Redfield's?
I know.
They kind of did that with Reverse.
Well, I know that the series was inspired by George Romero back in the 70s and what have you, but
a decent amount, yeah.
Yeah.
And especially to the point where they got George Romero to direct a couple of trailers for a couple of commercials for Resident Evil 2.
Yeah, that were only released in Japan.
That basically brought the influence full circle.
Yep.
All right.
And then there was that whole debacle with the live action movies that they wanted George Romero to direct, but that didn't end well.
Oh, man.
That didn't end well.
The movies we do not speak of.
Let's keep on going. So the idea of having more action-oriented sequences or set pieces in some of the more recent games, is that more of a positive or a negative evolution of the series? Like, let's say you have QuickTime events, or more QuickTime events, or on-rails sections where you're running away from something, or is it like are those good or bad elements is what I'm asking?
I like QuickTime events can stay out. Sorry, you go on.
Well, like QuickTime events, I like 4's QuickTime events in terms of, oh hey, go up. Is that? Really a QuickTime event? I guess.
Credit to the remake. The remake did try to mitigate the issue a little bit.
They did a great job of like turning QuickTime events into an actual knife parry fight in real time.
Yeah,
like they can do some smart stuff, but like having to watch cutscenes like what we're looking at right here.
Yeah,
that I mean, it was cute at the time. It was like, oh wow, I have to pay attention and then wait for the button. That's so cool. And now it's like it was so overdone, and to the point where like in Mortal Kombat X in 2015, you had to hit QTEs in the cinematics, and it was
to be fair, that wasn't all the damn time in MKX though. And also, yeah, every so often at least. So I can Injustice, I think, did it a bit. Injustice, I think, went a little too far, like making individual mini games, which were fine, but at the same time, it was a different thing every time.
I just hated those because I played the PS2 version of 4, and it's just if you die. If you mess up one, you die, and then you have to watch the whole thing, and you can't skip it. And then the button prompts would change.
It was
between attempts.
Yes, they do. It was between this and the original God of War. They were both 2005.
But that was the most infuriating thing of I died, and then I'm ready to go, and then the button prompt is different, and I die again, and then I have to watch the whole thing.
I was gonna say God of War 1, which is another game that Mayo has covered, that we've covered his videos on.
Yeah.
What a coincidence.
I got no real problem with quick time events if it's just for like when they grab you.
Yeah. Oh, mash out of a grab or yeah, sure. It has its place for sure. Like I don't want it to completely disappear. Like I think it adds things and like God of War, right? I will always defend the quick time events in combat in the original God of War games because it was the option. Right? Like, if you wanted to kill the enemy regularly, you could just hit him a couple more times with your weapon and they would die. But if you wanted to go into the quick little mini game and match the random prompts and you killed him that way, not only do you get the cool animation, but you also get like a magic bonus or an XP bonus, or you get a health reward. Like, that's how you do it right. And I think a lot of games just put them in there just for the sake of having them without the actual context.
And then there's the very last one of God of War 2 that can bite all our asses.
Dude,
the one against Zeus. The one against Zeus.
I know what you're talking about.
That one can bite everyone's collective ass.
I think I stopped playing. I was at the last QuickTime event. I failed it for the third time. I just put the controller down and walked away.
The one from 2. Well, that was literally the very end of the game anyway. So I'm just like,
I was right there.
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah.
That's all. That's the last thing you needed to actually beat the game.
Please tell me you played 3 though, Smudge.
Oh yeah, definitely. 3 was great. 2.
God of War 3 is fantastic.
Yeah, no, I played them all. They were great. 2 it drove me nuts with that fight. The QuickTime event last part of Zeus was too much for me. And again, after the third time, I was like, I'm good. I'm okay with it. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep going. So this is going to be a rather odd question, but which secondary character from the series, so that means not Jill, not Chris, not Leon, not Claire, so one secondary character can deserve their own spin-off, and why? And would it still be in a Resident Evil style game?
So the people that don't count are just Chris, Jill, Claire, and Leon.
Well, those are the main heroes of the series, I think. So if there's like a second,
I think all the main characters have gotten at least one game apiece all to themselves. I think.
Well, I was gonna say Rebecca, but she got 0. So.
She got 0 with Billy. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
So then my pick, Sheva probably or Lewis.
How about Chief Irons?
Oh no!
A prequel backstory of Chief Irons.
Maybe an animated short focused on Irons.
Can we get a spin-off game where we're the bad guy? And
I was thinking like you're right, like a Wesker game where you build a blab or something.
Are we the baddies?
Like no action at all. It's like a point and click in like 1993 PC style.
Yeah, it's just gonna be Wesker in the lab wearing a lab coat. He's not even like infected or anything. He's just normal guy.
Can we get a prototype game, but we're Wesker?
Well, any character you enjoyed that you thought, hey, this guy's pretty cool. He's got all this story behind him or all this history I don't know. I'd love to explore that maybe.
Yeah, I think Lewis would do really well with a backstory.
Like an RE4 prequel, yeah. Like during the time skip between Raccoon City and this.
Yeah, you like hit him in his early lab days, and then like the early, very early experiments with the Las Plagas, and like maybe something goes wrong and they have to deal with it. You can make it more of a horror game.
Yeah, and don't forget in the remake, RE4 remake, I think you find that note that says that the picture that Luis was on the team that worked on Nemesis.
I didn't get that.
Wait, Luis, really?
Yeah. He, I think there's a photo that you can find in his lab, and it's like, it's like the Paris Umbrella team, and Nemesis was created in the Paris lab. So he worked on Nemesis.
Oh.
So that'd be interesting.
That just reminded me. I take it back. What about Carlos?
Carlos too. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, Carlos could be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, getting
because he hasn't been in anything. He hasn't been in anything since 3.
Well, neither is Sheva.
Yeah, I think is Sheva the same. Doesn't she get mentioned and stuff in the late like?
I think she does. I think she does.
Carlos is never even mentioned in anything after.
No, he is not. What's even weirder is he doesn't even get an epilogue in the original RE3.
Not even in the remake?
No, he did. Actually, he doesn't. There are no epilogues in the remake of RE3.
Oh my god, I was going to say, in terms of the original RE4, fuck Carlos, apparently.
Yeah, but no, he didn't get any epilogues in the original RE3. Carlos.
Weird.
Honestly, just it's a
Barry gets one, but
yeah, Barry.
That's just because you gotta let Nikolai survive for Barry to even show up in the first place.
Yeah.
I guess it's a tie then of just Lewis, Carlos, or even Billy. For me.
Oh yeah, Billy too. Yeah, you can't. Yeah, wonder. People were wondering what happened to Billy after Resident Evil 0.
All right, fair enough. No, there's lots of characters you guys could have ran through, so I was wondering what was on your mind.
What's yours?
What's the girl in 4 you have to save all the time? The president's daughter?
Ashley.
Yeah, what would she do after Resident Evil 4? I always wondered what would she get herself up to.
It's mentioned in the animated show, the Netflix show, Infinite Darkness.
Of all damn things.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
I think Leon sees her picture on the president's desk or something like that.
He's like, I need this job.
Yeah, she'd have a pencil pushing job.
He's getting PTSD flashbacks.
I wouldn't with the gameplay the new gameplay they gave her in the remake. I wouldn't be against a solo game built on that.
Well, yeah, she could actually do stuff. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, she's actually pretty capable in the remake.
Whether that's believable or not is up to debate, but
Yeah.
It would need to be something that happened after, I think, because like if you put Ashley through her own giant adventure before the events of RE4, I think it kind of takes away from like the character's general fear. It's kind of like what they did with Rebecca and Zero. I mean, I think
literally that's literally what they did with Rebecca and Zero, because she squares up against the literal
the nemesis, the tyrant,
the proto-tyrant.
She goes through this whole thing, and then she's supposed to be just a nurse waiting for you in the nurse's room.
Yeah. I'll just wait here in this room.
The best you can say with Rebecca side, she probably just ran out of whatever ammo she had from the training facility. Tired, ran out of ammo, probably in shock, even despite beating the proto-tyrant.
What? I never played Zero. What happened to Billy? That's the reason he's not in the first.
He just
game.
Disappeared, and he just went off. Just walks off into the sunrise.
Yeah, he's just a dude. He's just a dude, and he just got he escaped from prison too. So I don't think he wants to hang around.
And then the one time they brought him back in Chronicles, they actually got Roger Craig Smith to voice him, even though it's like it sounds nothing alike. It just sounds like Chris again.
Oh wow! But yeah, I was gonna say and Rebecca falsified a police report saying that he was dead.
Yeah, just to like help him out, like hide from that from all the shit.
But hey, you know what? I know why. Okay, even though Rebecca had all that combat experience, I know why she was just hiding in the nurse's room in RE1. It's because Wesker's in the building, and Wesker's a creep and has that photo of her like in her little like short
in the lab.
basket.
In the lab?
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah.
God.
That's why. That's why she's hiding out.
You know what? Actually, you know what would have been a really good twist with Rebecca's character if they revealed like years later she was like Wesker's protege. Because think about it, because she's a child prodigy. She graduated from college at 18. She's got a degree in biochemistry.
Combined with I think being the youngest member of the Stars team.
Yeah, and she started like a month or so prior to
a month earlier at 18, I think.
Yep. But yeah, that would have been a great reveal that she was like Wesker's protege. Like she drops like a line that like Umbrella paid for her college tuition or something like that.
Maybe. Oh wait, what about? No wait, she was in a game. I was gonna say the daughter of Birkin.
Oh yeah, Sherry. Yeah, she was in 6. She had her own. Well, I mean, if you counted Jake's section as her own thing.
That
I guess.
whole weird thing.
Yeah. Oh god, that whole thing with RE6. She has the ability to regenerate. Yeah. Well, no, she has the Sherry has the ability to regenerate, but she only uses it in one cutscene, and she never uses it again.
I'm just still puzzled by I only beat Leon's campaign about the longest boss fight ever. At the end of his campaign, just
Simmons. Oh god,
Simmons. That goes on so long.
Oh my god. That is when they went crazy with that boss. Because it wasn't bad. It wasn't bad when he changes into like whatever that tiger thing was when they're being chased on the train. That's one thing. But when he transforms into like a T-Rex and then a giant fly, it's like okay, it's like how are you doing this? How are you doing this?
How much biomass are you? I don't get it.
Yeah. Yeah, and he got a normal dose too, I think, right? Didn't he get like a normal dose of like the C virus or something?
He gets like, it's implied he gets a special thing from Evil Ada or something like that.
Evil Ada, you
know. I forget. I'm trying to remember. Carla, exactly. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
That's just.
You can always go on about all these possible spin-offs with side characters. Always fun to talk about. Anyway.
And what could have been.
Well, the series is I think, going to keep going on, so they might do.
You know what? I want to play as Salazar.
No. It's got to be the original RE4 Salazar, not the remake. The original.
Okay.
I want to go on like a Super Mario Adventure as Salazar.
What the hell's the difference?
The original is more cartoony.
Okay. Anyway. Previously, you guys were talking about the co-op in 5, and I heard about the focus of multiplayer in, was it Reverse? Resident Evil Reverse?
Reverse, which is
there was also Outbreak as well that had multiplayer.
Yeah, there was I couldn't remember the other one. Yeah, I guess that was the other one. Does that retract or detract rather from the idea of Resident Evil like as a survival horror, or is it does it make it work even more? Because there's games that you throw in multiplayer that sucks, and there's games where it works. Like look at a bad game like Mass Effect Andromeda. The core game, the story, the characters, all that is pretty lame. But the actual multiplayer, the mechanics are great, and it works well in multiplayer. So is that something that could work in a future game, or is it only limited to co-op?
Well, since I recently played 5, I will say the co-op in 5 is pretty fun, and the big draw of that was the resource management and having to share. Like sharing ammo with the partner and discussing that, and that actually I think added to the core gameplay. That was just kind of 4 again, and then after that they took that away in 6 and just you can't share anything with your partner.
Right. I was thinking of maybe more along the lines of, let's say, not an Elden Ring, but any of the Souls games where you could have someone pop in and help you out.
Oh yeah, maybe.
Or work against you.
Oh, well, yeah, I guess that could happen. They could shoot you in the foot.
It'd be interesting in a Resident Evil game.
Let me take all your ammo and log out. Yeah, that'd be great.
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
Yeah, go through that door. No. Trust me, go through that door. Yeah.
What about that invasion mechanic that got unfortunately cut from Doom Eternal? But they were gonna have people come in as demons in the campaign.
That cut? I don't remember.
Yeah,
that.
they were good.
That was announced at that was announced at the QuakeCon in the lead
I
up
remember
to
they
the
announced
game's
it. I
release.
remember they announced it, but I didn't know they cut it.
It was
Yeah,
cut.
they
because,
cut
it was cut because of the pandemic because they couldn't get in the offices
Exactly.
to do the proper testing to make it work.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's like it was announced. I remember it was at the QuakeCon, at the last QuakeCon in the lead up to the game's release. Before it got delayed.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate casualty of the pandemic.
Yeah, that would have been. That honestly would have been cool. It's like you just queue up for any mission that your friends are playing. It's like, and then you just show up and like later in the level as a super heavy demon.
No, show up as a marauder controlled by an actual player and be the biggest piece of shit.
Was Marauder one of the options for that?
I don't know, but it would.
I know in the main multiplayer it is, but for Invasion that early in the game.
Well, it depends on where you get the
Yeah.
Because I do specifically remember the level that they showed the invasion mechanic on was way before the Marauder being introduced.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine they did that for Resident Evil and you could like show up as a tyrant.
Or just drop in as a hunter.
Yeah, that too.
Drop in as a chainsaw man.
Or no, as the licker, you can climb up onto the ceiling and ambush players.
Yeah, but they would have to go back to like original level design of like layered house or a layered location.
Yeah,
to really make that work.
It sounds like you guys want to make a versus mechanic or gameplay where it's kind of like a deathmatch in fight. Like what's that? Was it Alien? What Alien game had that where the other player played as the alien? And
I think that came out recently.
Colonial Marines?
Was it Colonial Marines?
No, you can't play as the aliens in Colonial Marines.
Yeah, you could. I mean, in the multiplayer, you could.
Yeah, not the.
And that was horribly broken in the multiplayer because I don't know if anybody remembers this. If you play the main story of
Colonial Marines, I was thinking Fireteam Elite. Sorry.
Yeah, I played that one too.
Don't worry.
But if you play the main story of Colonial Marines, you actually get XP and you rank up. That all carries over to the multiplayer. So when you play as a human in the multiplayer, you've got all that XP, you've got all that rank, and you've got like all the best guns unlocked. And when you play as a xenomorph in multiplayer, you start at level 1. So yeah, it made it horribly unbalanced. If you played the main story in Colonial Marines.
Okay.
And then there's the Alien vs Predator series where you could play as a Marine, Predator, or Alien, and that was fun.
Yep.
I always tend to think in terms of Predator when you think of Resident Evil because you are the guys, you're a squad, you're coming out to figure out what's going on, and then you end up becoming the hunted. You end up having the demons or the zombies or whatever, the T-virus, whatever is coming after you at that point. So, yeah, no, all these influence from the 70s and the 80s always come back. This is probably why I subconsciously like the series so much, even though I'm not like a huge fan. It's just this thing that in the back of my mind, I really like this series. It's just a great idea, intellectually at least.
Yeah, it scratches so many different horror tropes that I like.
It is the de facto horror genre video game series, I think, that we all just sort of go to, as opposed to adventure games or FMV games or any of those other games I played back in the 90s. That
I think it's just a Shinji Mikami thing as well. He's really good at that.
Okay.
Because didn't have Mode 5.
All right. Next question. So, what would you rather have Capcom do in the future? Remake the classic titles, or should they focus on creating new installments with new narratives and new gameplay mechanics? For example, the Resident Evil remake has multiple endings, different characters, scenarios, or just take those ideas that you took from Resident Evil remake and just make a new game. Like, what would be the best idea?
I'd like to see just a new IP. I mean, I don't think we need to have a new Resident Evil every 2 years for the rest of our lives. I mean, they're great. They're great, but like maybe take this awesome team and let them use their imaginations for something original. I'm sure they would love to do it.
I would also argue the engine as well, because RE Engine, like it was even able to make like DMC5 the damn good game that it was as well. That was RE Engine as well.
Because when I think of zombies, I tend to go to the like State of Decay games and DayZ and those survival building games where you have to like build a base and then survive the night and then get resources in the morning and that sort of idea. But I don't know if that would fall... Well, obviously it's a new IP, so you wouldn't think in terms of Resident Evil world. You think in terms of, okay, what could Capcom do, which is action-oriented, but also has base building mechanics? That's where my brain would go.
Maybe something that builds off of Mercenaries, where it's like you do that house section in RE4 with Lewis, but they make that like a base building, prepare for the assault kind of thing. Of zombies outside.
Oh, like a Far Cry sort of idea, maybe.
It has to have, yeah.
It'd be interesting.
I'm just thinking because they never really. I think more side stuff like Mercenaries. There's a lot of potential for.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I'm not against a Resident Evil 1 remake because I just think it's going to happen eventually. Eventually, they're going to do it, right? And if it happens, I just hope it's good. Really, I mean, I just hope it's fun.
Yeah, I would not be adverse to them remaking 1 again in the style of the RE Engine 2 and 4 remakes.
I don't. Me personally, I'd rather not have them remake Resident Evil 1 because it's like we've had so many iterations of it over the years. We've had Resident Evil 1, the original Resident Evil 1. There was the director's cut. Then there was, so many others. The Wii version, the Chronicles version, and then there was. I think they re-released it, and it's like so many iterations of it over the years. It's just like I don't think it needs it, to be honest.
No, it doesn't.
It doesn't really need it. I think the only thing that RE1 needs is a definitive ending. Because me and Ginga, we've talked about this in the past on the other RE Smudtalk was RE1 has like several different endings. None of them match up.
It was it was when we were covering Mayo's last video on RE4 where that came up as well. On top of also the RE4 video from Gaming Brit, Road to the Rocket Launcher as well.
That's the one I was talking about.
Yeah, it came up. Well, it came up both times.
Right.
Where it's like you can't achieve the canon ending of RE1 at all. It's like, which is why I've suggested if they go for the RE Engine remake, to try and make the attempt to condense everything into the one playthrough that finally gives us the canon ending.
Right. I mean, I wouldn't be against that. Just have an ending that makes sense, that fits in the continuity of the lore that you're talking about. That I would be fine with. But like, do we honestly need another one? I mean, hell, at that point, why not just reboot the series at that point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think if they do RE1 within the RE engine, it might as well be a reboot so that they can finally put everything together and actually give us the conclusive ending.
Exactly.
And then do whatever else from there.
I think that's a pretty good question because right now the lore and the storylines of Resident Evil world, not just the games but the movies, the Netflix, all that stuff it's a little daunting to remember it all and figure out who's who and what's going on. Should Capcom like prioritize streaming that all into like a remake, or in future releases, like say they have the next natural mainline game, should they do like a new 52 and just reboot the series, or bring them all together as one, or what? Like what should be the?
I would say a reboot. I would honestly say as a last resort.
I don't know what they're gonna do after 9, or if that's supposed to be into everything.
Yeah, that's the big question. After 9, what do you do? I mean, like, you remake 1 and
remake
5?
Everything.
Well, that's
remake everything.
Code Veronica.
Yeah, that's kind of that's different. But the idea behind Village, I thought, was not a reboot, but a return to what made Resident Evil, at least in concept.
They returned to the main storyline too with Village a bit.
Yeah, I was thinking of maybe if they break away, like the same way Shin Megami Tensei series. You guys know that from Atlas, where they have the Shin Megami Tensei series, and they have Persona, which is the popular, fun high school sort of world. So Shin Megami Tensei deals with, very high, complex gameplay. There's the sort of bleak atmosphere. There's the world-ending God's going to destroy all life. And then you have the Persona series, which is about waifus and social links and music and having good times with your friends. But world-ending scenario. So it's kind of the same idea, but they break it apart. Now, this is just my idea, that they break away from the QuickTime events and all the cutscenes and focus back to the original Resident Evil, which is all puzzles and survival horror, and having all those elements back, just with better technology, better hardware, better software,
and more refined, as well.
Right, and another thing we have to consider too, and I don't think this would ever happen with Resident Evil, but we still have to be cautious about it. Is keep in mind they rebooted Saints Row, and I think we all know how that turned out.
That's
So, they have to be careful about rebooting a franchise, and what they do.
Capcom's gonna ride the remake till they literally can't pick anything else to remake.
Yeah.
At least Code Veronica and Outbreak at this point.
They're so close to doing the main to doing every numbered one. I say just go for it. Just remake 5 and 6. You're this close.
No, I would want Veronica first, because I've said before you can't have 5 without Code Veronica.
Right.
There's key elements from Veronica that carry over directly into 5.
But they remade 2 before 1. They remade.
They remade 1. They remade 1 first, decades ago.
Yeah, but that doesn't count. We're talking about modern Resident Evil remakes. That was 2002, and then RE2 remake was 2019. It's a whole different generation of players that played Resident Evil 2 as their first Resident Evil game with no context of what's going on, and then they played RE3 remake with Jill, with Nemesis hunting STARS members, and they're like, who are STARS? Like they so I don't think they care about what the context is with these remakes. It doesn't matter what is set up in other games. They'll remake the ones that'll make them money.
That's part of it too. I think another remake of 1, I wouldn't be adverse to if they just try to iron everything out and have it fit together better.
Right.
And
yeah, in the modern remakes, who the fuck is Jill? We don't know who she is. They gave us RE3 remake, which was the game that built on her from the first game that people didn't play.
And it was cut down severely.
Yeah, and they actually had good ideas in the RE3 remake. Like they toyed with the idea that Jill was suffering from PTSD from the events of the first game.
Sure.
But that kind of went away after a while. It's like, and they kind of tried to bring it up again. Like, she's having a nightmare about Carlos being infected, which didn't make any sense, because how does she know what the inside of that hospital looks like, even though she was unconscious? But, regardless, they had good ideas in there. I've always loved the idea of Jill Valentine from the novelization of Resident Evil, the books that came out at the same time as the games. Because in the book, Jill Valentine was a former cat burglar. Her dad was a cat burglar as well.
Is that canon?
No, they're not. They're not.
Okay.
It actually makes a lot more sense lore-wise, because in the games, Jill Valentine is a former Delta Force, soldier, and her specialization was lockpicking. Just lockpicking. That was it. Sticking a little piece of metal in a keyhole and wiggling it around. That was her specialization. Whereas in the novelization, she was a cat burglar, so it made sense that she knows how to pick lock.
Yeah, I don't mind that. She's young. She could have had a bit of a troubled past, and then reformed life, and then she gets into law enforcement and uses her skills. I don't mind that.
That's what happened in the novelization. Her dad got caught as a cat burglar, and he went to prison, and that was kind of like a wake-up call to her. She's like, hey, I got to get out of this life. That's going to happen to me someday. So she quit, and she became a cop, and she joined STARS. And I was like, okay, that actually makes sense, as opposed to she's a badass, Delta Force operator who just knows how to pick a lock.
Mm-hmm.
It's
the
like
master of unlocking.
Yeah, they teach you more, to do more than just pick a lock. It's like, breach a door or, use explosives to blow open a door. Nope, it's just stick a piece of metal in a keyhole and wiggle it around until it opens.
Yeah.
Like that.
Have a nice day. Yeah.
Can I add something now that we're talking about the 3 remake?
Sure.
Like, a last question about. Wait, what was one of the questions earlier? What's your most disappointing in the mainline? Or
right?
Yeah, mine was definitely RE3. I haven't played a lot because it's a lot of RE games, but mine since getting into the series was definitely the 3 remake.
Yeah.
For least favorite.
No, for most disappointing, because I love the hell out of RE2 remake, and I was really looking for something to scratch that itch again. So I saw the 3 remake, and I was like, oh, this should tide me over till whatever. It looks similar to 2. And on my first playthrough, it largely did. And then I got to like the middle half of the game, and I was like, this is losing me. This is losing me a lot. And then I got to the very end of the game, and it pulled me back a bit. So then I played it again on the harder difficulty, and I absolutely hated it. And so yeah, that was definitely. Then I got, then I went back and played the original 4, and I feel better.
Dude, even on the hard difficulty, Nemesis goes down to a single grenade. I couldn't fucking believe it. I was like, are you kidding me? Yeah.
Did you play, or not play, but there's a higher difficulty beyond that, I think, called Inferno.
Yes, there is the Inferno difficulty, and that's
a
nice.
Clusterfuck.
Yeah, it's nice that there is the additional difficulty option, but like the first playthrough is everything. The first playthrough is the experience. That's the game. And I played it on hard. Nemesis popped out. I chunked a grenade at him, and he went down. And I was like, you have ruined this character.
Well, not only that, he doesn't drop any weapons either.
He doesn't drop the weapon parts, right?
Yeah, right. He drops weapon parts for your handgun, but that's about it.
That's the only one, really? Damn.
Yeah, he drops, I think, like a suppressor, an extended mag, and I think something else.
Because remind me, isn't the 3 version of isn't the upgraded shotgun from 3 like one of the best shotguns across the franchise? Second only to something like the Striker here.
I don't remember the upgrade.
At least in I think at least in classic Resident Evil, the upgraded shotgun from 3, from what I've seen, is one of the better ones from the older games.
I just remember the upgraded shotgun from 2. I don't remember one from 3.
The boomstick.
Are you thinking of 2? Are you sure you're not thinking of 2?
No, 3 was the one that she spins around to reload.
Oh, okay. No,
but you mentioned the one shotgun. The lever action, shotgun. Exactly. The lever action, exactly. Because I also remember the and you mentioned the one from 2 as well. Like, and I still remember that in was it in EX Battle, you could play as Chris. He had that one, and he didn't suffer the bigger knockback.
Oh, the
knockback. That knockback and just the sound of it. It was just the most absurd thing. I loved it.
I remember once I was firing when I was playing the original RE2, like Leon fired the shotgun and it actually blew me into like another camera angle. Like the recoil was so bad, I went backwards into another camera angle. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Which it's much easier with that shotgun than any other one in the old games. Yes.
Yeah, but yeah, RE3 remake was a huge disappointment. And I never played the original RE3.
And at least the 2 and 3 remakes are not the canon versions. The 4 remake is debatable right now because it still sticks pretty close.
Yeah, I'll give them some slack because I get the development cycle for that game was hit with unfortunate circumstances. Yeah, but it just didn't feel nearly as good just playing it.
Yeah. And what's even worse is like Capcom was like, "Hey, do you guys want the RE3 remake?" It's like, "Yeah, we want it. We want it." I mean,
we do.
After we saw, RE2 remake, we were like, "Yes, we want it. We want it in this style." And it's like, "Well, if you really want it, we'll give it to you." And well, we got it.
And there it is.
That's the thing. Everyone saw the RE2 remake and was like, "Holy shit! Can we meet? We want that with other stuff, right?" Because I'm pretty sure, Silent Hill 2 remake and the Dead Space remake were decided upon after RE2 remake.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well,
showing what we've always known is that the survival horror audience is there. You just gotta give them a quality title.
Give them something fucking worth a damn.
Well, first of all, for situations like that, that's what the indie scene is for.
Yes, we are getting lots of great stuff in the indie scene. I mean,
you definitely get. I remember you gave plenty of examples in the RE4 video as well.
I don't know if you guys have played it, but the Halloween update just came out for Amnesia: The Bunker, and it is fantastic.
The ones I remember off the top of my head are Alyssa and Signalis.
Yeah, and Amnesia: The Bunker is up there. Amnesia: The Bunker has become one of my top tier survival horror games, up there with like RE1 remake on GameCube. It is that fucking good.
Yeah, RE1 remake still holds up to this very day.
Yeah, it's the king of kings, right? It'll be there forever.
In terms of definitive survival horror, I will absolutely give you that one. RE1 remake will stand.
Yeah.
I didn't notice you released another Dead Space 2 video.
Yeah, I finally put that out. I finished it back in February, and I just kind of put it on the shelf to release in October. So it's a fun little conversation.
Fuck! I hope they remake 2.
It would be nice. I mean, the one remake was pretty fun.
Yeah, there's so much. I was gonna say, especially if you got the New Game Plus ending for the Dead Space remake, that actually ties in better, I think.
Yeah.
But there's so much potential.
Well, like did they like retcon the ending of the remake to match with 2?
No, there's 2 separate endings.
Well, if you get the New Game Plus ending, Isaac is actually insane, and he's talking to Nicole as he's on the escape shuttle, and he pretty much says that he's got work to do, meaning he wants to create more markers. So it's implied that he's like lost his mind at that point.
That ties in a lot better with the premise of 2, which is it's a time skip and he got his memory wiped.
Yeah, and the government had him making markers while he was.
Sad.
Yeah, but it makes more sense, narratively speaking.
I assume it's non-canon, regardless.
We'll see. We'll see.
What is canon when we're talking remakes? Right, like.
Well, I mean, the RE1 remake. To mention that one again, that one supplanted the original version of the game in the timeline. Definitively, it's like it does add those few extra details to. It does add some details to match up with the rest of the series, just not too much.
Yeah,
but it did put in the effort to at least do some of that extra legwork to match better.
When we on a question list, where did we start?
Yeah, I was gonna say, you got another question for us?
Well, no,
I got to get out of here in about 5 minutes, guys.
Yeah, those were all my questions. You actually went ahead and changed the nature of the original question, which was the main line, but you talked about the remake on 3. So that was all I had. Thank you guys for staying around. That was fun. I mean, you guys could go all night, I know, and I'd be like, yeah, that's cool, but I have no idea. But we could do this again. I'm sure there's more to talk about, and we have all kinds of different topics to cover in the Resident Evil world and survival horror in general. So you tell me when you're good to go. We'll have another one going. So thanks.
How about one last question, which is, what is everyone's here's favorite RE game at the moment?
Someone asked that in the chat. earlier.
Yeah, I would
what
say
our favorite is.
mine. I've played the entire series up to 4, and for me, it's still 4.
Okay.
Around the table.
All right, so Mayo, bad boy.
I'll go first because I got to get out of here. It's in my heart. It is RE1 GameCube remake forever. Like that's just my policy until the day I die. Right.
It is a really good game.
But I gotta say that the Resident Evil 2 remake and the Resident Evil 4 remake are like right up there in terms of how much I love them as games. I love them more than their originals.
They're definitely contenders for the high spots. Yeah.
They are up there on the same level as RE3 Nemesis to me, which is probably my favorite Resident Evil game to play. But like the Resident Evil 1 remake is just the representative of the genre that I love so much, so it always has to take the first place because of that. It's like when you say, what's the best fighting game ever made? Well, you have to say Street Fighter 2 because of its legacy. But like, what's the one you really like to play? And then that's when I'm like, RE3 Nemesis, RE2 Remake, and RE4 Remake. So, guys, it was a pleasure being on here. Thank you so much for having me. I got to get out of here.
Yeah,
I'll join you for the MK talk when we get to it.
Yeah, that's on the docket too.
Nice. And check out my RE6 video while you guys can. All right.
Shout out to the Mayo. Yeah.
Thank you, Mayo.
Bye, guys. Have a good day.
See you.
Have a good one.
All
right. So Beta, so Bad Boy, your favorite?
I would have to say the original RE2 because that was the first RE game that I ever played. I saw it when I was at a friend's house, and I was like, "Whoa, what is this? This is so cool!" This was like back when it came out in 1998, and I was like 10 years old at the time, and I was like, "Wow, this is so cool!" And I was asking so many questions. My friend, he got so annoyed, he just like paused the game and he pulled out a strategy guide and he threw it in my lap and he goes, "Here, read this." And I flipped through it and I was like, I wanted it so bad, and I didn't have a PlayStation. I ended up getting it on Nintendo 64. But anyway, yeah, I would have to say RE2 and RE2 remake is definitely high up there, but I would definitely put the OG RE2 over that because it told a more it was essentially the same story, but it made sense in the narrative because there's a huge, and Ginga can back me up on this because he's played RE2 remake. There's a huge narrative.
Yeah, in terms of the lore, I can back you up on it. Yeah.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Because in the original RE2 remake, you know, Leon and Claire bump into each other like a couple of times over the course of the game.
And, at least 3 times.
Right, exactly. But when you play the remake, they never run into each other.
There's none of that.
They never run into each other until the end of the game, and it makes 0 sense. Like when you watch all the cutscenes or play the game, and then you stack it up to the other characters' story, it's like this doesn't make sense. Which is why I've always said it's like you can forgive the remake of RE1 for still like being loose with the canon because it was always like that, and we ultimately do know the canonical outcome regardless. Right. But the remakes of 2 and 3, and especially 2, like you're saying, it has no excuse to diverge that much because we do know like the definitive canonical path. Exactly.
Which, if I remember correctly, the canon path in the original was Claire A, Leon B for the longest time.
That is correct.
And it still is because of how different the remake does it.
Yeah, but like it doesn't make any sense. Like I could forgive like Leon and Claire not running into each other in the police station because it's a big place. You know, maybe, you know, he's on this side, she's on that side. I could forgive that. I could forgive the sewer, maybe he's further ahead or she's further behind. But when you get to the laboratory, no, cannot forgive the laboratory because it is such a confined space. There's a moment like towards the end where they would have bumped into each other. It is canonical that they do have that final encounter and escape together. Right, but I'm saying like in the remake. I was just mentioning how it was in the original to compare. Right. But yeah, it makes zero sense in the terms of continuity in the remake. It's just the original RE2 makes so much more sense. I mean, yes, there are problems with it, but narratively speaking, it makes more sense in the original.
The original is still tighter by comparison.
Yes. I mean, there's still problems with it, but we'll.
But ultimately, was still able to have its head on straight when it came to the lore and trying to bring in the stuff from RE1 and then into its own story, and then establish things for later on in the story, which includes this very game, Resident Evil 4, with like Leon being the main character. That RE2 helped establish him to become the main character that he becomes in this very game. All right, and Gaw, what is your favorite Resident Evil?
Just kind of just purely on the virtue, it was the first one I beat, which is RE2 Remake.
That's fine.
The first one I played was the original 2, but yeah, I never beat that. And just the first experience of playing through the RE2 Remake and all those, like, just figuring stuff out and just running around, dying a bunch to Mr. X, and then eventually getting to the end. That's easily put it as my favorite. And I only played RE1 Remake for the first time this past summer, and that got really up there, but it's still 2 Remake.
Nice. And again, I'll still say the original version of 4 is my favorite because, as we've mentioned many times before, this one was the one that at the very least refreshed the Resident Evil formula by adding the action bent, which went off a bit too far later on. But in terms of 4 specifically, as we've said before, that's the kind of shift that the series needed to stay alive.
Exactly.
And it does a lot of things right in terms of game, and not just games in general, but also pushing RE forward.
Strong bombs.
It definitely deserves its standing alongside other legendary games like Mario 64, Super Metroid, Ocarina of Time, the original Metal Gear Solid, the first Halo. A lot of those that definitely took those steps forward to push the industry forward. And RE4 definitely deserves to be among them.
Yep. Exactly.
Cool. Well, for me, I'm an old schooler, so the first game, a little bit the second I played, and I do remember checking out Code Veronica, and I think Code Veronica had, like, I remember watching people play that as well as playing it myself. There's lots of lore dumps and trying to figure out what was Umbrella, what were they doing, who's this Wesker guy? Like, that's sort of, for me, that's what I remember the most. And I think that's where the popularity sort of came from, like you see the movies or any of the stories, like the Umbrella Corporation. So I think that for me was, like, I want the story to be the focus. I want the atmosphere to work. Yeah, it's not as the most influential Resident Evil game, but it feels like it's, like, it felt like when you did something, it's like, oh my God, I actually killed that guy. It took so long as he kept dying. Like, it felt like you accomplished a little bit more than just like solving a puzzle, which most of the games have a good puzzle solving. So
yeah, Code Veronica had a problem. Code Veronica had a problem with the tyrant on the plane because you could soft lock yourself in that game in that fight.
Really?
Almost every boss fight.
Well, if you didn't collect a certain amount of ammo, you could like soft lock yourself.
Oh,
like you just be like you'd be screwed. Yeah. And a lot of people have complained about that too. That particular game, that particular fight.
Some people say it's the true RE3. I don't know about that. That's sort of...
Well, technically that's true because it was made...
Right,
in the development cycle, it was meant to be the third one.
Right.
And it was designed plot-wise, essentially, to be the third one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just appreciate all the lore dumps because that's what I wanted in those kinds of games. I wanted creepy stuff. I wanted you to be a mystery solver. I want, what's going on? Who are these guys? Who's this Wesker dude? Why is he weird? Like, that's what I liked, that sort of mystery. So that's why
is he wearing sunglasses at night?
Why won't he shut up about my brother?
Yes, of course.
Where is my brother? Yeah. That was fun. Anyway, thanks, guys. That was the stream. We did okay for an hour and a half. Glad we had Under the Mayo on. I don't know when we're doing the Mortal Kombat stream, but we'll figure that out for next month.
At some point, yes.
Yeah, everyone's gonna be busy next month in December for
when
sure.
people
But
finally figure out how to play the new one.
oh yeah, eventually.
It's a point
It's
for
like
another time.
$70.
Yeah. Well, that's for someone intrepid gamer to stream for me. That'd be great. So anyway.
Yes, we'll see. We'll see how things play out with that latest Mortal Kombat game. But for now, that was fun.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everyone.
And once again, shout outs to Under the Mail for joining us for this one.
Yeah, I'll have to link in the description for you guys to check out his stuff if you haven't already. Go right ahead. He is a big fan of this stuff. He comes out with a video, I think, every week or so. He's really into that.
Yeah, he released a lot recently. I didn't even.
Yeah, and he mentioned he records stuff like months in advance. Like he recorded stuff in January he hasn't released yet. I mean, he's that nuts with his streaming or his
which in its own right is definitely a double-edged sword. But
I'm just waiting on his
it's a
Alan Wake
case-by-case
video because he said he was gonna make an Alan Wake video, and
I think Alan Wake's worthy of discussion. There's lots of lore and storytelling to talk about.
if we got Cyrex, we could have a whole Smudtalk on just the first game.
Yeah, no, it's
Cyrex,
really
yeah.
good. It's a really good series, and I think
What I love about Alan Wake is like how they weaved it into that game Control.
Oh yeah,
there's a huge revelation actually in one of the DLCs for Control that makes you go, whoa, okay, that's interesting. I won't say what it is, for anybody that wants to play it.
Yeah, I think if you're into survival horror, everyone should be playing, or at least have played Alan Wake, the first one at least.
Mm-hmm.
And the sequel just came out. Am I hearing
I
good
know.
things? I don't know.
I'm skeptical, but yeah, these days I'm very skeptical, but yeah.
And to finally end the stream off, if for anyone that is a fan of survival horror or horror in general, and you haven't made Resident Evil 4, what you waiting for? This right here is one of the greatest games of all time, and
You can get
you're
a
definitely missing out if you
polished
don't.
remaster on Steam for $5.
And the best
Along-
part is
along
about
with the
Resident Evil
remake.
4, and the best part about Resident Evil 4 is you don't have to know anything about the previous Resident Evils.
Yeah, it's a soft reboot, but in the best way,
Yeah, and
Well, I mean, they explain it in the opening narration crawl too.
and that's why it's in the best way.
and Leon's kicks are stronger than missile launchers at times, but that's
Yeah,
At times.
at times.
And he has a grappling hook he uses one time and never does it again. And
that's it.
it's never brought up before that moment. He just has a grappling hook in his belt.
Anyway,
It's Batman.
Some people have missile launchers in their pants. We don't know where they come from. Anyway, we will go. Thank you very much. Have a great night. Talk to you soon. Good night.
Bye.
Resident